a one-stop shop for sending your space mission to the moon. I'm Tonya Hall, and joining me is John Thornton, CEO of Astrobotic. Welcome, John.
Oh, thanks for having me.
What does Astrobotic do?
We're building a DHL-like delivery service to take payloads to the surface of the moon. So we're taking customers from all over the world, bolting up on our lander that goes on top of a launch vehicle and flying it up to the surface, landing it on the moon, and then providing utilities once the payloads get there. So we provide power and communications for the customers that want to come with us. So it's a one-stop shop to do your space mission to go all the way to the surface of the moon.
Tell us about Peregrine. What makes this lunar lander special?
So Peregrine is our delivery truck. So this is the vehicle that we take up to the surface, and all of our customers get attached to it. So it has 4 payload decks around the perimeter of the vehicle, and that's where our payloads attach. So they can go above or below the decks. Payloads that want to look up at the stars or look back to Earth go up on top. Payloads that might want to touch the surface of the moon or maybe deploy and drive off attached to the bottom of those decks. The lander is a single stage vehicle, so once it is deployed from the launch vehicle, it goes all the way out with any separations. It orbits the moon, it descends down to the surface, and then once it lands, it uses a solar panel to become the power station and Wi-Fi for local communication for rovers and things that might want to drive away from it. And then the lander becomes essentially like a communications tower to go back to Earth to make sure that we can have a regular communications for our customers.
What technical hurdles did you have to overcome to finalize Peregrine's design?
Flying to the moon is hard, and still is hard. It's 50 years since Apollo first did it, but we are doing it robotically. So one of the big things that we take advantage of, at least, is the 60 years of spacecraft development. So a lot of these parts we can go buy off the shelf. But the real challenge is knowing which parts to use, how to test them, where to find the sweet spot on the price performance curve and reliability curve, and then to know all of the ways to integrate it with the software and the avionics and the ways to test it and bring it up to flight grade to go up to the surface of the moon. So it's taken a long time to get the architecture right and the design of the lander right to fly out. But a lot of the basics are similar to Apollo. Like, for example, the landing legs use the same crushable honeycomb that Apollo used. The propulsion system is a variant of propulsion that has been used in space for decades. It's a MON 25 propulsion system. So a lot of the building blocks are there, but it's really just, it's in the devil's in the details on this one. It's the intricacies of how it all goes together that makes it a big challenge to do a space mission to the moon.
What kind of testing does a lunar lander have to endure to make sure that it's up to the task?
Testing a lunar lander on Earth is really hard because a lunar lander is designed for moon gravity, right? And that's 1/6 Earth gravity. So if you had a fully fueled lander here on Earth and lit it up and tried to fly it, it would just make a whole bunch of flame and smoke because you're in Earth gravity. The thrusters aren't strong enough to lift the vehicle off the ground here on Earth. So in order to test a lunar lander, you have to test each component individually. You have to take the thruster and go put it on a test frame and test it. You got to then integrate it with all the pieces together and make sure they fire together at the right time, they do the right things, but you can't actually get to a full free flight here on Earth. And then similarly, the sensors and avionics, they all have to be simulated here on Earth with hardware-in-the-loop kinds of tests. Once we get up to space and we're cruising out towards the moon, that's when we can shake out our propulsion system and our avionics system, make sure everything's working right. So we're kind of almost testing as we fly at that point. And then once we get out to the surface of the moon, it's about a half-hour descent down to the surface. So once we say go, start the landing, that's it. It just has to work. The rest of the way from there, it's hands off.
What launch vehicles will take Peregrine into orbit and beyond?
So right now, our United Launch Alliance is our launch partner, but we're also open to other launch providers going into the future. We fly as a secondary on the launch vehicle, so that means that we're sharing the ride to get to space. And that makes it much more affordable for us and thereby our customers to fly up to the surface of the moon. So we attach to the top of one of these launch vehicles. We fly out of Florida. We get pushed into what's called a translunar injection, which is basically getting chucked toward the moon. And then it's our job from there to slow down into orbit and descend all the way down to the surface.
In May of 2019, NASA selected Astrobotic to deliver payloads to the moon in 2021. How is Astrobotic making the moon accessible to Earthlings?
That is really the core of our mission, is making the moon accessible to the world. So NASA purchased an $80 million set of payloads that they want to send to the surface of the moon. We're going to deliver them. We also have 14 non-NASA payloads flying to the surface of the moon, and among them, 7 nations that have never gone to the moon. There's only 3 nations that have ever operated spacecraft on the moon, and they've all been superpowers. Our first mission will more than double that number going to the surface, almost triple that number going to the surface of new nations that have touched the surface of the moon. So that is us making the moon accessible to the world. And we not only do it for other countries' space agencies and commercial organizations and brands around the world, we also offer it to individuals. We have a program called DHL Moonbox that is designed for folks like you and I to send small mementos up to the surface of the moon. Previous to that, you had to be an astronaut like Charlie Duke to leave a photo of your family on the moon. And now we are connecting individuals to the surface. And I'm just so excited to bring the moon to the entire world.
Finally, John Thornton, CEO of Astrobotic. If somebody wants to find out more about your work and maybe if they want to send something to the moon themselves, how can they do that?
You can check us out on our website, astrobotic.com. That's also where you can find DHL Moonbox, a way to send your packages to the moon. You can also follow our latest updates on Facebook.
Sounds good. Thanks again, John. And if you guys want to find more of my interviews, you can do that right here or go to tonyahall.net. Thanks for watching.